This is make or break for Haason Reddick when it comes to his contract, what the Eagles want to do. And is it good news? Is it bad news? I don't know. But the Eagles could have so much cap this offseason, and they haven't touched their roster yet. A lot going on, and we're about to find out a lot of things of where Vic Fangio is going with this defense.
We better do. Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what's going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So I want to go over some news for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think one in particular that we really have to talk about is the future of Haason Reddick. Obviously, what came to the Eagles in 2022, signed that, 3-year, $45 million deal, 30 guaranteed, 13 signing bonus. I mean, it was a hometown, I guess, discount, you'd say, because really, he's not really one of the highest paid, really not one, even one. I think he's not even like a top 7, top 10 highest paid defensive end as of right now. And obviously the Eagles' best defensive lineman. And you know what, Haason Reddick and how they used him last year and how they've really used him the past few years, even coming off consistent double-digit sack seasons before coming to the Eagles, which a lot of players can't do that. And 2 years straight with the Eagles, double-digit sack seasons. I think what he had 11 and a half. I think he had I don't know what he had in 22, 13 and a half. I think it would have been like 16, including the playoffs, 16 and a half, something like that. How they used him in pass coverage. And, I feel like you're wasting him at this point. I think even this past year, because every position was flawed, because the scheme was not serving true to the strengths of all these players. We're strictly just talking about defensive line right now, and it could change dramatically. Okay. Even Haason Reddick, his contract, what you're going to do. One more year left. 2024, he's a free agent. 25 is a voided year. So wouldn't make a big deal about that. It's one more year on his contract. And, what are you going to do? I mean, yeah, you can cut him, you'll save a good amount of money. You'll save $16 million if you do a post-June cut. And obviously the dead money's not bad at all. They can eat that up easily. But the $21 million cap hit, that's where it's kind of a little high right now. I don't even know what players are that high in a cap hit right now. But for literally, I don't think our quarterback has a cap hit of that much going into this year. So you're not trying to cut, Haason Reddick. I highly doubt it. I think Vic Fangio would love to use Haason Reddick. Okay. If you extend him, yeah, there's some big cap savings there, 11.8, almost $12 million. Okay. And I think you have no choice but to extend him. But look at our front right now. I mean, defensive end wise in general. I mean, look, kind of look at the whole situation. Even if Haason Reddick gets extended, what's the future of this team? Even, I think Haason Reddick still got a lot of juice in the tank, no doubt. Josh Sweat's on the last year of his deal right now. I mean, I can't put too much on sack numbers. I think Josh Sweat has done pretty well on some of his pressures, but the Eagles just didn't have the linebackers were put out of place. The other defensive linemen, I mean, they didn't know how to get pressure. Okay. You have your corners 8 to 10 yards off the ball. I can go half and half with this because I cannot blame the defensive line for everything. We can't hit home when you have your guys off the line that much. You're not even using stunts with these defensive linemen. You're literally telling him to line up and just play basic, and you're not giving the offense. You're not making it harder for any offense, for the offensive lines, the blocking schemes. You're making it too easy every single week. Okay. Josh Sweat had a sack, I think, the last game against the Giants. He didn't have a sack before that until week 9. Yes, week 9 was his last sack before that last game against the Giants. That's how crazy it's been. I mean, even Nolan Smith, I mean, you cannot waste this guy. And unfortunately, Nolan Smith had an injury at the end of training camp, and then he, got back, played a little bit of special teams. Sean Desai gave us pretty much a whole entire excuse on why they didn't play. They haven't been playing, Nolan Smith 5-6 games in, saying, oh, you only give so many players reps. I mean, this is your first round pick. First round pick. You're expecting, somewhat some productivity, just a little bit, some flash, a little bit more flash than usual. And Nolan Smith just, unfortunately, I think he needs to bulk up a little bit, and I really think he needs to be a pure edge rusher going into next season. Now, if Fangio likes him that much, which you've seen a lot of film at Georgia where he could maybe list him as a Sam linebacker or do something like that, kind of hound the line a little bit and be disruptive. I think Nolan Smith can do it. I think Nolan Smith is somewhat wasted at defensive end purely, but I feel like because this past year was they didn't know how to use half of these guys, and to put these guys in good positions, I feel like it was just a waste of a year to how can you at least try to see what production you're getting out of guys that you want to cut, release, trade, sign? How do you get the production out of your defense and kind of say, okay, this is what we have and this is what we're going to do with him next year at the end of the year? You know what I mean? Like how are you supposed to get a bird's eye view of what your roster could do when most of these guys have failed the whole season, and it really pisses me off. And that's really up to what Vic Fangio wants to do with him. I think there's a lot more with Nolan Smith that we need to unveil. And we just haven't hit that spot with him yet. We've seen him play as an outside linebacker. We've seen him move back. We've seen him in pass coverage. He's got the athletic ability to do it. But literally, it was a wasted year for Nolan Smith. I mean, Derek Barnett took most of his snaps. Desai didn't bother to throw him in as a first-round pick. Why don't even throw him in the games? Yeah, maybe at the end of the year for a few games, you start getting more playing time. But at that point, it's just too late, And I think the roster has obviously given up the last 7 weeks. I mean, that wasn't a roster that had no sense of urgency, especially on the defensive side of the football. Even Brandon Graham, like defensive end, is just winding down. Brandon Graham wants to come back for one more year, but do we want to make this another emotional signing because he's been here for so long? Like, we need to start being smart here. Okay, Brandon Graham wants to come back. We love him. I get it. He's a leader. He talks a lot of smack. You have to have vets on your team. I get it. But is Brandon Graham going to be a wasteful signing? Don't think, Brandon Graham, you're coming back. You're going to get you're going to come back for a big, hefty 1-year deal with a lot of, millions of dollars at stake. It's not going to happen. If Brandon Graham is not coming back on a cheaper deal, I don't even care at this point. Okay. So either the Eagles are going to go into the draft and they're going to draft a trench guy, which I think at this point they might. It wouldn't shock me within the first 3 picks between your first rounder and your 2 second rounders that they draft a guy in the rotation to play really well. I don't know if somebody drops, but they need an edge rusher. Free agency might not be the answer either. They need a long-term answer because you got nothing out of Nolan Smith. Brandon Graham is coming back for 1 more year. It's not a future asset. And Josh Sweat's on pretty much 1 more year. And obviously, if Josh Sweat plays really well in the 2024 season, then I could see the Eagles maybe extending him, maybe. But I don't think that's the case. I think they can either go in free agencies, you only have a certain time limit with certain guys in free agency. I would love to draft a homegrown talent. And yes, of course, we have Nolan Smith, like I said. Even if you want to get a Chase Young, if you want to get Leonard Floyd, something like that, it could make a lot of sense for the Philadelphia Eagles. Even Brian Burns would be another one, another guy I wanted, even that I think is more realistic when it's cost effective. I think we'll get more productivity out of him. Not even barely in coverage, but as an edge rusher as well. So I think you're getting a little bit of a nice balance with Brian Burns. So I think there are some guys out there that they could get, but I really want more long-term. I want someone that we could produce. And I think there might be, depending on what the cornerback position looks like and what the Eagles do. So if they trade for a corner, I don't know what's going on, depending on how much they put into Keely Ringo and Eli Ricks and what Vic Fangio sees from those guys, that could be the future number 2 to get James Bradbury out of the building, then they might have room to move up in the draft and maybe get one of the big-time edge rushers. I have no idea, but something has got to be done with Haason Reddick and his contract, because theoretically the Eagles could have over $50 million in cap space, okay? Byard's a cap casualty. You cut him post-June, he's $14 million. Avonte Maddox, post-June, $7.1 million. You're going to get a lot of money back from some of these guys. An extension with Haason Reddick, like I said, yeah, it's a good amount of money. I mean, 11.8, almost $12 million. So the Eagles normally don't have this much cap space. Even north of $28 million is not too bad. It's not a lot of money because you need like 10 to 12 for your draft. I don't think the Eagles are picking 4 guys in the 5th round, so that's probably not happening. But you have some security there. Not saying spend as much money as you want, build your team, build your defense with free agency, but I think they have some money in the future when it comes to free agency that they could overpay and pay a top-notch linebacker, pay a top-notch safety, maybe a guy that Vic Fangio wants to trade for, maybe a past player that played for Vic Fangio that wants to come here. I don't know. There's plenty of options out there in what they do, but it starts out with Haason Reddick and his contract and where they go with it, because you're not carrying him for a $21.8 million dead cap hit. It's just not going to happen. So an extension, you gotta do it. I mean, look, if you had a double-digit sack guy for 2 years straight on the Philadelphia Eagles, like Haason Reddick, you don't get rid of him. You don't cut him, and you certainly don't trade him. You're going to extend him, and then this is our best guy, because I don't know what Josh Sweat's going to do his last year here. I don't know what Nolan Smith is going to do. There's got to be a plan for him, but things have to be in motion for Haason Reddick, his future, and I think Haason Reddick, I think there's a lot of players out there that just there was not enough creativity, not just for the offense, but for the defense as well. And players are starting to, not say full out that they needed more creativity, but you've seen it. I mean, you've seen a lot of players seen it, how the Eagles practice, how the practices follow into these games every single week, and how they can't tackle and how they can't cover, and how, you're switching defensive coordinators within the year. I mean, Reed Blankenship and Slay talked about it. Like, why would you switch your defensive coordinator? I mean, we got from bad to worse. At least with Desai, I mean, he held teams to 22 points a game from Patricia's 27. And, you're leaving James Bradbury on an island. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're still using Haason Reddick in pass coverage. I just don't get it. You're using Josh Sweat in pass coverage as well. No stunts, barely blitzing. The team doesn't know how to blitz. There has to be a mental break of the whole culture defensively needs to change. I think Vic Fangio will get the respect enough to what he's going to turn this team into. And I'm very excited for it. And like I said, a lot of moves can be made here. But I don't think bringing Brandon Graham back is not for the future, because I don't want this team to be all, let's just bring him back because he's been an Eagle his whole career. It's like, if he's not going to produce, there's no reason to bring him back. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be, I love Brandon Graham. There's no doubt. But when things are done, things are done. Potentially could lose Fletcher Cox as well, with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's contemplating on retirement as of right now. So we're going to find out what happens with him in the future. You know what I mean? And Fletcher Cox, got $13 million for the year. You know what I mean? That's a lot of money on a 1-year deal. Thought he played really well on a rotation. Milton Williams is a good player that just needs more reps. I think he gets better every single year. Moro Ojomo started to get more reps by the end of the year, made some good tackles. Is it enough? You're losing depth at defensive tackle. You're gonna have a defensive end problem. It's going to happen. If they can't produce, if Nolan Smith produced this past year, if Nolan Smith had like 8 sacks this year, then sure, then I would say, you know what? Let Haason Reddick go somewhere. If we got like, if Nolan Smith was producing at a high level, and he had an amazing year this year on his rookie year, fantastic. I would definitely get rid of Haason Reddick. There would be at least some maneuverability with that move to put him somewhere, cut him, or trade him, or whatever. You know what I mean? If you felt like you had that and didn't want to carry Haason Reddick's $21 million cap and didn't want to extend him for more money, how much is Haason Reddick going to want? So you could afford that, but we don't have that, unfortunately, because production of players is horrible. How you get this much out of your roster, how you are supposed to sit there and look at your roster and say, okay, well, here's our plan. This is what the guys did. I mean, everybody hit a wall. The scheme, the positions were flawed. And unfortunately, I mean, one of the biggest collapses in Eagles history at 10-1, losing first seed, second seed, division, and on top of having a playoff game clinched weeks ago, you still couldn't even beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. it's that sad, it's that degrading, and things have got to change dramatically. I don't want to go back to the old ways just because someone's played here for a long time, bring him back. Or, you know what I mean? So I feel like a lot has to change internally, the nucleus of the culture, when it comes to not just the defense, but the whole entire team. It's got to be a different outlook on things. The team needs to get a break, which they have been on a break as of right now, come back, get, revitalized and, get ready, for the next season and the offseason program. But we still have free agency. We still have the draft. We have a lot to go over, but like I said, a lot of cap space is on the line right now. I want to keep Haason Reddick here, and this is going to designate what the Eagles do in free agency. It's going to designate who they draft and what will they do. So by the time they start picking at their own roster, and Vic Fangio, because he's calling the shots right now, he's hiring his own coaches, he's calling the shots. He's going to be calling the shots on this roster. Just because James Bradbury's here for 2 more years, it doesn't mean they can't extend him and then cut him and, get charged $4 to $5 million a year in dead cap. That's easy money the Eagles could take out. It's no big deal. If it's a single digit number, who cares? Bradbury's only a $4 million cap hit this year. So, and Howie Roseman loves the trenches, but we have to put other attention to other positions like safety, linebacker, and you need to see what you have at corner with a lot of depth behind it. You know what I mean? So you're going to have a lot of guys leaving the building. Vontae Maddox is definitely gone. James Bradbury definitely gone. You have no safeties. You have no linebackers. You went to Kobe Dean here. It's not enough with Ben Van Summer, and there's nothing there. Okay, but your defensive line is where it starts, and that's where Vic Fangio is going to get his success from. That defensive line has got to make sure they get pressure on quarterbacks. I mean, Vic Fangio was 3rd in pressures with Miami. How he does it, you're not just throwing any player in a scheme and just telling him to play the scheme. He's going to personally pick and trade and sign and get players into the scheme that fit what he does best, what he wants his defense to fit best. And that's what they need, because unfortunately for some years now, I think a lot of offenses have figured out Vic Fangio's system. But Vic Fangio still, when you have good players that know the scheme, that play together, that swarm to the football, that tackle well, you're going to play really well in this defense. I'm not the biggest fan of the scheme, but it is what it is. We have to deal with it. He's hired now. And if it's to change our roster and get younger guys here and sign some, free up some money and sign a free agent or 2 or something like that, then I'm perfectly aware and fine with that. So I think there's a lot going for us cap space wise for the future. And, defensive end, defensive line, a lot of the guys hit a wall. Jordan Davis goes back to his original spot in the 3-4 at nose tackle. You'll have some guys on the edge there. So it's great. So there's a lot of good things that we're taking out of it. And I think Vic Fangio is going to get the right players here. And like I said, a lot of questions regarding defensive end for the future. Nolan Smith, no production because of how just the poor choice of barely even using him and throwing him in last end part of the season. Okay, just ridiculous. Can't get pressure, can't blitz, can't run stunts. I mean, it's that embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. I don't know what these guys get paid for. I don't know why these coaches even get paid, period. Josh Wett on the last year. I mean, it's a whole bunch of things. You're trying to get a replacement for, you draft the 1st round defensive end, an edge rusher in Nolan Smith, and you have guys that are going to leave this roster soon, and he's not even he didn't even show a little bit of production this past year. Hasn't done much of anything. If I'm just to be honest with you, Nolan Smith has done nothing. Not his fault. It's how they've used him and how they've kind of phased him out with Derek Barnett and then giving him these last minute snaps, at the end of the year. Just it made no sense to me. But that is the news for the Philadelphia Eagles going forward. We talked about defensive end in general, the defensive line, where it's going to go. It's going to be a lot of moving pieces and who they bring back. I don't think Vic Fangio is going to want to bring in, Graham and Fletcher Cox and just be like, we're good. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, he's going to look for guys around the league that are going to fit his scheme. And I think the Eagles will have cap. I think most of the money is going to be put into this defense. I mean, I would think so at this point. I mean, you're missing a wide receiver 3 or running back in your offense and maybe some backup depth at offensive line that you could be losing in free agency, but that's pretty much about it. Your offense is pretty much almost set. You're just worried about your defense right now. And trust me, what's in the room right now is not going to be the same. So we'll see what happens. Guys, let me know what you guys think Vic Fangio's moves are going to be defensively. What do you think they do with Haason Reddick? Do you think they extend him? Do you think they cut him? Do you think he stays here for a few years? What is the future of Nolan Smith and all that great stuff? So you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys on the next one. Shakes what up, follow slide. Peace out, guys. Peace.